Hey guys, this is S1REN with Offensive Security, and today we're going to be working on a PG practice machine called Fish. Fish is an intermediary machine, we believe, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. So with no further ado, I am going to just pause the video, hop over to my virtual machine, my Kali virtual machine, and we'll get rocking and rolling. So I've gone ahead here and kind of done the nmap scan already for the purposes of timing, but we did do a standard -p- for 65,535 ports, -st and -a to run all scripts against our environment variable, which is our target IP, and we provided --open to only scan those open ports. Now what we're going to do is also hop back in So what I've done here is already gone through and highlighted, that way you guys don't have to wait and see. We have 3389 RDP service, we have 3700 GEOP Cobra naming service, or Corba naming service. Yeah, 4848 we have HTTP Sun Glassfish open source edition 4.1. 6060 we have HTTP again. So a lot of HTTP is what I'm seeing. We're seeing a lot of Java. So maybe a Java deserialization, something like that comes to mind. But that's port 7676. Port 8080, again, HTTP, just more SSL. 8181, more HTTP. And then it looks like 8686 is going to be a Java RMI. So with that being said, let's kind of get down to business. I've sorted these up here. So we have all our HTTP ports that we're going to be enumerating, busting, and hopefully we just go down the list and we get lucky. But first things first is let's RDP into the machine. It's actually fairly simple to do this. Like, what we're going to do is we're just going to type our desktop against the IP here. Yes, we do. And we're going to let that connect. Great. So we have an RDP connection here. We can definitely tell that this is some kind of Windows 10. We don't have any usernames or passwords gathered, but in the event that we did, we would definitely come here. So I'm just going to close out of this. But RDPing into something is a great way to see kind of the release of Windows that it might be by using their RDP service. So I'm just going to close out of this. And let's go ahead and look at our HTTP ports that we're going to assess. So we have this, we're going to save from this, it's probably something Windows 10. Not exactly sure which version, which release, but Windows 10. And then 4848, we have HTTP. And this was the, that's my cat in the background, but Sun Glassfish Open Source Edition 4.1. And basically, the name of the machine is Fish, which is kind of curious to me. So it's just this sunfish is everywhere. Fish, we have it on 8080, 8081, and yeah, it's all over the place. So let's go ahead and load up a web browser. I think I have Firefox loaded up here. And oops, let's grab the IP address, of which is in my terminal. Might as well put that here. In fact, we're going to put the target OS this time as Windows 10 something. Not exactly sure, but for now we're going to leave that kind of as is. I'm going to paste our IP here. And what we're going to do is go into here, Firefox, and we're going to load up the HTTP. The idea here is that we want to load up a tab for the HTTP ports that are on the machine. Before we do any busting or rigorous fuzzing, we want to take a look. So let's see, 4848 J security check. Okay, so we have configuration error, secure admin, Oracle, created by Oracle with contributions from the Glassfish community, 2005 2014. Cool. So let's take a look at some other ports here. We have 6060 /app, and it looks like we have Cinnamon. So 4848, I'm going to put that we found, we can put a sunfish login. Port 6060, we found something called Syna. Is that how it's pronounced? SYNA, Synaman. A Synaman 4.0 login. So I'm going to kind of highlight that. We have a Sunfish login. Port 8080. Let's take a look. Data web. Looks like just a default template. I don't think there's too much here. 2021, all rights reserved. It just looks like a default template. We could definitely fuzz that down and see if there's any like hidden directories in it. But it just looks like here we have a default template. More fuzzing. Something hidden perhaps. But port 8181. Let's see what's there. In fact, I think that's SSL. So if we HTTPS, advanced, and accept the risk and continue, is the same thing. So default template. Clearly it's a mirror of the same thing. It's just over SSL. And then port 8686. Let's take a look at that. Copy that. Let's get the IP address on the clipboard. And 8686. And that doesn't seem to want to come up. What did it? Oh, that was an RMI. That was actually Java RMI. So that's my bad. 8686 is Java RMI. But man, that is a lot of HTTP. It was 8181, which we already covered. 7676, we have Java Messaging Service. And 8686, we have Java RMI. So what I've done here is I've moved some of the lower priority things to the back burner, to the lower of our to try list, because just the name is fish. So we're gonna take a look at that. But let's go back to here. And before we even do any directory busting or any fuzzing or anything like that, in fact, let's close out of data web right now and take a look primarily at these two things. When I'm presented with a login like this, something that I like to do is peruse for default credentials. So let's look up Glassfish 4.1. Glassfish, yeah, server username. It looks like admin. The default username is admin, and by default there is no password required. So what we're going to do is just close out of that, hop back here, type in admin, and log in. And it looks like that's already been configured, so they don't have default credential usage. I'm going to put that there's no default creds on that one. Cinnamon 4.0 also has one, but what I want to look up real quick before we do that is to see if there's any, what is the security track record? We've collected, let's come back to our master enumeration. We've collected a lot of valuable output from Nmap thus far. Before we go throwing a bunch of fuzzing at the server or anything like that, which we will do probably, in fact, let's actually go ahead and see. We'll do that in the background. I don't see why not. Port 4848. We'll do this kind of sequentially. We'll export the URL to equal HTTP on port 4848/fuzz. And then I'm going to use my common word list here, and we'll fuzz for any files that might have been left behind. This is just me being a little nitpicky. I see there's a lot of erroneous responses there. Maybe we can suppress those with --HH on 4772. That is, we want to suppress anything that comes back with 4,772 bytes and see if anything shakes loose from that. But let's export again the URL in another terminal while that's going. And let's actually grab the IP. but we're going to export the URL here to be http, what was that, port 4848 /fuzz/ and we'll close that out. And then here's my directories one. So again, just explaining kind of what these commands do. We're saying wfuzz, we want color. Our file input method is going to be a file, comma, and then we're going to use OffSec list discovery web content raf medium directories. --HC404 means we want to hush or suppress the response code of a 404, and we're going to do that on our URL environment variable. So now that we've said all that, let's go ahead and send it along. And it looks like we're getting back that 4,772. Looks like we're going to have to do the same thing, --HH 4,772. And we'll let that go. I will pause the video, and when it's done, we'll take a look if there were any hidden files or subdirectories that we might be able to look at of interest. Okay, so we should be back now. Let me just verify that we are back. Certainly are, just had to make sure we were unpaused. So we've finished our file fuzzing of the web root of port 4848, and we finished our directory fuzzing for 4848, and we got back really only no results for files, nothing really trickling behind. So that's just, quite frankly, that's nil. There's nothing there. We got a code 200 for present working directory, just dot. So we're going to clear that out. But we did get this management, monitoring, and command. So we're going to go here, and right underneath 4848, I'm going to say that we found management / monitoring and command. Now each one of these was a 403, which is not really going to particularly help us too much. So I'm not going to highlight any of that, but we did at least do our due diligence there. But before we continue fuzzing the same files and directories for each of these web ports, what we want to do is actually check the security track record. As you guys know, we host the exploit database, and there's a tool called searchsploit. So we're going to use searchsploit to search the exploit database, and always remember you can do a -- update and get the latest version. I've already done that. So we're going to search for sun, or was it glassfish? I think it was glassfish, yeah? Sun glassfish. We'll type sun glassfish. And, okay, so we have, it looks like an authenticated code. So an authenticated code execution. Let me separate this. Okay. Very interesting. Let's hop into the Metasploit framework. You can do that just by typing MSF console. And that should load up the Metasploit framework. You'll see it start to go across here. And I'm going to search in there and see if there's any actual things for, let's search glassfish. Okay, so there are things here. There's a login, brute force login, utility, hash table collisions, Java applet, remote code execution, and that's excellent on that one. But more in line with 2015, if you recall our versioning, is a path traversal. So what we're going to do is actually just copy this, and we're going to type use this. And I'm going to type options, and we're going to grab the IP address of our target machine as the remote host. I'm going to set our hosts equal to this. The remote port, it seems to recognize as 4848. Now the file path, it seems is a little interesting. So let's recall that when we're sending a payload like this, it's going to be sent over HTTP protocol, or over TCP, HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And because of that, we may need to URL encode for a path traversal. And what we want to do is to just see if this is working, quite frankly, Windows win.ini is a really great one to check for. So we'll just type run and hit the enter key. And it looks like it did find something, which is awesome. And we'll cd to root.msf4 loot, and we'll cat 202 this. In fact, I'll move this to win.ini. And yeah, so we got information back, which means that this path traversal is going to work for us. I'm going to just actually remove everything in that directory, and we're going to do some enumeration. So before we move on though, I would like to say there's a difference between a directory traversal, a directory listing, and a path traversal. Directory traversal will allow and permit for the exfiltration of data. Directory listing will not, that is to say from a file, an endpoint being a file. A directory listing is just that. It's self-explanatory. It's going to list out the directories and their names, but it's not often will you have the ability to then pull or exfiltrate that data. If you were able to, with a directory listing, able to exfiltrate that kind of data, we would call that path traversal. So if you combined the exfiltration capabilities of a directory traversal finding with the very verbose information of being able to list out directories on a machine, you have what's known as a path traversal. So this is definitely a juicy finding. What we want to do though is kind of just experiment. Let's set the file path just to be /, right? I think / is a good URI, and then we'll run that, and we'll cat the document and take note of what we have. So we found Windows, yep, users, system volume information, Cinnamon. So I'm going to actually get a new notation up for what we have, which is a working finding. We're going to say that we have our path traversal for glassfish. And the / URI yielded the following. / gave us what? It gave us the equivalent of, if you are familiar with the command prompt, you'll be familiar with what this looks like. Yeah? So anything, if we were to, in a command prompt and we typed the directory command, this is what we would have gotten back. So we found something here which is interesting, which is Cinnamon, Glassfish 4. We obviously have program files x86, program files and program files x86. So we're going to highlight those as well. Documents and settings. It's getting pretty good, is all I'm saying. We didn't even get down to fuzzing 8081, messing with any Java RMI, deserializations, and we've already found something. So, but then again, the hint was in the name of the machine. It was called fish. So let's see what else this machine has to offer us. We could go into Glassfish configuration and look for that. But the one thing we don't have is Cinnamon credentials. Let's actually open that back up for visual representation of Cinnamon 4.0 by Cinemetrics Technologies. So let's go back to MSF. I'm going to just kind of move this as 1 and 2 and 3 and so on and so forth. That way I can easily cat the file. Let's set the file path to be a / cinnamon. I always think cinnamon, but cinnamon. And let's run that. Let's cat the document. And it looks like we have an admin console.htm. Okay, useful. Boom. We have a config file. No, that's a config directory. And then here's the server executable. I'm already thinking maybe post-exploitation this could be useful. But we have the config file here. So let's, with no hesitation, I'm going to move this to the second one that we exfiltrated. And we're going to set the file path to be cinnamon / config / and we're going to run that. And then we're going to cat the document or the exfiltrated data. And we have alert.txt, appconfig.xml, static config.xml also. But let's go ahead and take a look at appconfig.xml. So I'm going to move this as the third one. And what was it? Appconfig. Let's cat 3. Yeah, appconfig.xml. So we'll cat appconfig.xml. And or not cat it, but we'll put that in there as the file path. Again, we'll type options just to show you our remote host, remote port. SSL is false. You can also in this, I usually, as out of habit, like to set verbose equal to true. A lot of times that's a useful thing, little trick. But I'll run that. And wow, we've already gotten a lot back. So I'm going to go ahead and cat that out over here. And let's take a better look at it. I'll even blow up the font size. So let's pretend we extracted a lot of information and we want to be able to grep through it, right? What we can do is grep-ri for anywhere that we find user, -- color equals auto. And we have smtp user, user home root. So smtp, mail user is going to be value of Arthur. Look at that. We already have our first user on the machine. In fact, I'm going to go here to my machines directory, cd into fish, and I'm going to nano my users file, and I'm going to put Arthur right there and save that out. Let's do the same thing, but let's grep recursively, regardless of case sensitivity. See if we find pass, which we do, and that is King of Atlantis. So that's already, due to a path traversal and an outdated service, that's already potentially compromise of the machine to a very high extent. So what we want to do is confirm this. We're going to nano passwords, and I'm going to add the password capital King of Atlantis as such. And let's recall what I showed back at the beginning of this video. I'm going to exit out of this now. I'm going to exit out of our terminal here. And I'm going to exit out of this, blow this up a little bit, and let's recall something. I'm able to, let's echo our IP environment variable. Let's rdesktop to the IP. Remember, we don't have SSH on this machine. If we look at our nmap output, we don't have SSH. So I know what you're thinking, because we've done so many machines with Linux where we found username and password combinations, and then we generally want to hit up SSH with that. What we're going to do here is actually hit up RDP, remote desktop, and we're going to type in the username Arthur and King of Atlantis, and let's take a look. Oh, we're in. Nice. Excellent, excellent. So this is already pretty cool. Let's let it load. Let's let it do its thing. I don't want to break nothing. Come on, Arthur. Let's go. Pa, pa, pa. Come on. I certainly hope this works. If we have technical difficulties, I may have to pause the video. In fact, I'm going to pause it right now and see if I'm able to connect through another means, and then I'll be right back. Okay, I've unpaused. Let me confirm that I've unpaused. I certainly have. Okay, so I don't know what happened. I just closed out of it, and then you'll see here in that pause break, I just remoted back into it, and it seems to have worked. But we're in. We are totally in. That is awesome. So we're going to maximize this here, and I apologize if the font size is small. It looks like we're presented with something called total AV. I think that's an antivirus, right? So let's go ahead and open a command prompt because that's where we're comfortable, right? And let's go to properties, font, and let's make it like font size 28 for easier legibility. Okay, I know what you're thinking. Remote desktop, foreign. We live in a terminal. Trust me, I know the feeling. It's good to have a terminal up so that we're very quick with what we do. dir-a-o-q. Here's that root file system. Glassfish, Cinnamon. I did want to look at Glassfish while we're in here. It doesn't look particularly too interesting. There's a bin. Really, I would look for, let's do who am I /priv. Do I have any special privileges as this user, as Arthur? Shutdown. So we have shutdown privilege. Oh no, that's disabled. We should be able to restart though. So we can't permanently shut down the machine or power it off, but I believe we should be able to reboot it at least. Net users, any additional users here? Administrator, Arthur, the default account guest. So it's really just, let's see, is Arthur a part of any groups? Remote desktop users, thank goodness. That's how we got in. That's looking pretty good. Is wmic present on this machine? Nice. So if we wanted to do any very, very thorough kind of local scripts that we could run for enumeration, which I have on my own personal blog, and there are plenty of resources on the public internet for that. We can also take a look at task list. We can blow this up. CLS task list for boss. And there's our CMD, your phone.exe, all the standard stuff here for Windows 10. But we have total AV. Let's go into program files. I think that would be here. Or is it 86? Program files x86 and CD program files x86. There it is, total antivirus. So I'm getting a vibe that because there's an antivirus on this machine, it stands out to me. I mean, as kind of the obvious thing. Just because we're not using Windows Defender, this individual Arthur has opted for total AV. And we're kind of just going to show why that's a bit of a mistake here. So let's minimize this. Oh, my power's at 57%. Let me plug in real quick. Gonna pause so we don't lose that. Okay, unpaused, and we are... Oh, my mic was away from me. Unpaused, and we are back. But nonetheless, I've got my power cord fell out, but it's back in now. So what we're going to do is we're going to minimize our RDP session. And I'm going to open up a new terminal and blow up the font size for you. And we're going to see if there's anything. What does the security track record for total antivirus look like? Total AV. There is a privilege escalation. For 2020, 4.1431. And I believe that was what we found. Let's take a look here. In fact, if we just go back to our RDP session and open up total AV, there should be a help or an about somewhere. Settings. I do not see it. We would have to confirm the version. But let's take a look at maybe when this was put here, when this was installed. Total AV.exe. What if I right click? Sometimes there's an about there. Aha, about total AV. Awesome. So it is version, if I squint, this is even hard for me to see, version 4.13.31. So we have a privilege escalation. And I'm fairly certain I know which way this is going to go just based on experience with off-market antivirus software. But let's copy this. I'm going to go to our vulnerabilities directory. I'm going to type bring me it. Again, this is just a little script that I have that brings the vulnerability to the current working directory. Fairly simple. And we're going to cat this out and take a look at what it does. So here we have our description of the vulnerability, a vulnerable version if anybody wanted to download and test themselves. They've been kind enough to include that as a proof of concept. Plant the malicious file. In this case, we use a DLL. Okay, so we're going to be generating our own DLL file, probably with something like MSF Venom. And to exploit this vulnerability, must detect, and then we're going to put it into quarantine. Yep, move it to quarantine. And then attacker NTFS directory junction to restore. So what they mean here is basically similar to a symbolic link, actually, in Unix. We have the ability to create a symlink as kind of like a mount directory. And there is a binary called create_mountpoint.exe, which is provided by Google's Project Zero, actually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to, I've already done this in the background. I've made the malicious DLL file, but I'm going to show you guys how we do it ourselves. So I'm going to remove our version. I'm going to remove our version.dll, and we're just going to go ahead and create it ourselves. But I'm going to do a service Apache 2 start because we need to be able to transfer a few files over. We're going to transfer over create_mountpoint.exe, which you can obtain, I believe. Let's go to Google Chrome. It was, let's see, Project Zero, GitHub, and I believe it was symbolic link testing. So they call it, here it is, symbolic testing tool, or symbolic link testing tools. And if you just go to release, you can grab the 7-zip from that, and we'll be good to go. In fact, we'll get to that in a moment. But it says we need to create our own malicious DLL. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm going to type MSF Venom -P for payloads, Windows, Meterpreter, reverse TCP. And we're going to set, I'm going to need our, if config on ton 0, we're going to need our attacking machine's IP address. And I'm going to set the L host equal to this, the L port equal to 443, and what else do we want to say? -F is going to be DLL, because that's what we needed, and we'll just output it as version.dll, and we'll let that go. So once this is done, we're going to need to make a transfer to the target machine. So there it is. Let's exit out of this terminal, list out everything here. Here's our version.dll. Now you know how we've done it. We're going to transfer that, and we're going to transfer create_mountpoint.exe. And then what we're going to do, if I hop back over to our RDP session, antivirus protection expired. Your subscription to Total AV has expired. Renew Total AV, etc., etc. So we may be timed on this machine, to be honest with you. In fact, let's just do this. It says I have 6 days remaining. We'll see how it goes, quite frankly. I'm going to open up Internet Explorer and just paste in, actually, we're going to need our IP address, if config on ton 0. Copy that, and let's head back to our RDP session. Let this load in, and don't use recommended settings for the time being. And we'll do http://RIP on port 80 /. And we have the Apache 2, default. It works. It works. So that's my attacking machine. And then we'll do a /create_mountpoint .exe, and we will save this file, and we will view downloads, And we will open the containing folder, and there is our createMountPoint.exe. The next thing we're going to do is close that out, and we're going to transfer our version.dll. Version.dll. It found it. Now we're going to save that and open the folder, and there it is. I am going to actually go back to the terminal here, and we're going to go back to the root directory. I'm going to make a dir called mount, and what we're going to do is we're just going to move our version.dll. You're going to think this is actually pretty cool, and it is pretty cool. We're going to copy the version.dll into that mount directory, kind of as the exploit told us to do. We've created our malicious DLL, and then we're going to be using the NTFS junction, that is to say with NT authority kind of junction, or to a directory that would be listed with NT authority or system authority. So we have version.dll out of just our own Arthur user level mount directory, and we're just going to leave that as B, as is. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is actually, this is the beauty of the attack. I like to refer to it as a quarantine attack, because what we're really doing is taking advantage of something that's running with system level privileges. In this case, it just happens to be an antivirus. But we're taking advantage of that. Because a quarantine is just that. It picks something up, it puts it into a cell, into a room, and it locks the door. And then you, the user, have privilege to say what you can do with it from that point forward. We're going to take advantage of that type of generosity from this antivirus company. And we're going to we're going to put in custom scan. We're going to select a folder, click on this PC, and we're going to go to our mount directory that contained the malicious DLL. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, S1REN, this is an antivirus. It's running with NT system authority. It's going to pick up our DLL and it's just going to quarantine it. You're entirely correct, my friend. You are entirely correct. Oh, and our trial expired. So this is another thing that I wanted to demonstrate, is that this machine is a bit timed. So I'm going to actually have to pause the video, reset it, and remote desktop back in, transfer the files, and so on and so forth. And then I'll meet you back at this point. But the idea is that we don't, unless it lets us, right? Can we hit Start Custom Scan? If it scans for us, we might be fine. Currently, all right, it is running a quick scan. All right, so I'm going to pause it, and we're just going to let this go. Note to anybody doing this, yes, this does take some time. It will take some time to scan down, even a custom little directory like that. Okay, particularly interesting, it did decide to complete the scan, regardless of the activation. One threat was found. Let's click Resolve, and that'll bring up this window. And what we have is an action. It detected it as a trhijacker.gen. We're going to select the action and just leave it as quarantine. We're going to leave that as quarantine, and you see our version.dll and cmount version.dll. And we're going to say, you know what? Go ahead and remove the threat. And sure enough, this is what I was talking about with the expiration. So I'm just going to pause it, and we're going to blip through time. I'm going to reset the machine, just transfer over the files that we've already made, and I'll meet you back here. Okay, so we're back, and what I've managed to do here is just revert the machine. I transferred back the files, createMountPoint.exe, version.dll, and if you do revert, you may have to just double check when you're using MSF Venom that your L-host IP is the same and consistent. But we're basically just going to let this run. So while it's running, I will say, this was a timed thing. It was a timed thing, and that is the reason that we had to kind of revert that there. but that just adds to the fun in my personal opinion. So it is running, and what it should do, the idea or premise behind this attack, excuse me, again, is that it's like a quarantine attack. We're going to take the authority of the machine, more specifically the application that is going to quarantine the file that we consider malicious, version.dll, and it's going to consider it malicious as well. It's going to put it into its own little compartment, and because of that, what we can do is, from Google Project Zero's create mount.point.exe, we can, well, you'll see. It's actually going to be very, very interesting. But it's kind of like DLL hijacking, similar, I guess you could say. And you'll see why, the beauty of it, when we go into it. So resolve, we're going to set it to quarantine, and we're going to say remove threats. Okay, it's going to bring us up this. We can close out of that. Threat removed. Upgrade now, blah, blah, blah. So if we go to quarantine, you'll see that we have our version DLL here in its little quarantined area. All right, baby, that's awesome. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go into PowerShell. And let's just clear out of this directory. And we're going to do /create mount.point.exe. And we're going to call upon C in quotation marks. Mount is going to be the first destination. And then the next is going to be C, let's say Windows, Microsoft.net. And I'll make this a little wider so we can see what's going on. Microsoft.net, framework, version 4, and I should be able, oh no, wait, something has accessed it. It might be because I have that open. Well, that's okay, let's try it now. Now it works just fine. That is cool. So what we're gonna do is, let's take a quick look before we exploit this. Let's go to local disk C, and you'll see mount is now like a mounted symbolic link. If we opened it, it goes to our Microsoft .NET Framework version 4 directory. And I believe the beauty of it is that we're not going to notice any version.dll in here. But when we restore it, we're going to restore it, and remember, its original location was cmount. The program, the antivirus, will always see it as where it was found, cmount version.dll. The idea is that we've created a symlink here, so when it restores, it'll restore into this directory, which is going to help us tremendously. So we're going to hit restore. Are you sure you want to restore these threats? Restoring harmful threats can cause harm to your computer. Always make sure that you trust the publisher before doing this. Pretty sure we know what we're doing, so we're going to restore that. Awesome, we'll close out of that. And what we're going to do is refresh this directory. And there is our version.dll. Nice. So the first thing we're going to do is go into here, and we're going to load up MSF console. MSF console. Almost there. And we're going to start up a handler. That's use exploit multi handler. We're going to set the payload to be Windows interpreter reverse _ TCP. Let's do an if config on ton 0. Make sure we're consistent. 49.248 for me. It's going to be different for you. We'll exit out of this. We'll set the L host to us right here. Set the L port. We generated the version.dll L port on 443. We're going to clear this out, and we're just going to run it. Now that's listening. So what we're going to do is we're going to hop back over here with our mount point created and with everything restored. And we're just going to go to here. We're going to go to power, and we're going to restart the machine. That's right, we're going to restart it. Restarting, and we lose our RDP session. That's okay, we just need to be patient. We just need to be patient. So while we're waiting, I mean, we could go to offensivesecurity.com/events and see if there's anything new. EXP312 course or Mac OS control bypass. You can always watch that on demand. Trust me, it was not one to miss. So definitely check out the EXP312. But while that's going, it should throw us back. Once the machine reboots, it should throw us back a shell. We may have to relog in as the user. So I am going to grab the IP. We didn't even have to. Look at it. Sending stage. Yes. Get UID. We are NT authority system. So that is that. Or hash them. It's not here. Okay. Well, let's drop it to a shell. Who am I? Awesome. So we are the de facto authority on this machine now. And it's I don't know what to tell you. It's pretty awesome. I really loved this machine, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. Another trick with Meterpreters, we can hit Control-Z to background it, and then to background the Meterpreter session, we can just type background. We can type sessions, and now we could play with post modules and so on and so forth. Sessions -I1 ID 1 right here, you see, and then we start that, and we're right back into our shell. So guys, without any further ado, let's go ahead and drop back into a shell. What you would do from this point, I know we've you know the standard, go to the root directory for Unix-based systems, cat the proof file. Things are not so different here. Let's cd into the users directory. Let's cd to administrator. Let's go to the desktop. And then we have our proof.txt. What you would do from this point if this was, capture the flag, or even in the real world, just to show your authority, you would maybe show a text file, something there. But what you'd want to do is you'd want to type ipconfig and then host name, same as Unix, and then we'd also type who am I. And I have shift print screen, and we're going to go up here. Oh, and you can also type proof.txt. So again, guys, this is one of 2 machines that we're permitting for PG practice. But you would go ahead and you'd capture that right there, and this would be used as evidence and proof for your formal report. But you could save that out right there, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to cancel out of that for now. Just going to pause it for a sec. And with that, guys, I just want to say thank you again for being here this week. I'm really happy because for about 6 months now, I've been working with colleagues to try and get the green light to be able to demonstrate and show you guys a PG practice machine, more specifically a Windows box, because I get many of requests, S1REN, can we do a Windows box? I have good news. We have another Windows box coming. Next one might be a Unix box, so we can space it out. But the week after that, I see no reason that we couldn't do another Windows machine. I love Windows, Windows privilege escalation, and so on and so forth. So with no further ado, guys, make sure you always check out offensivesecurity.com for the latest deals and events. Check us out on our Discord. I believe that's discord.gg/OffSec or OffSec official. I'd have to check on that one, actually. But join us on Discord, and to any students, you're certainly in the right place, and we wish you the best on your journey, and I'll catch you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.